Hi, everyone. I am Rhonda Anstead, and I am here to talk to you today about a question that probably everyone who is watching this or listening to this has thought about and has struggled with, including myself. And that is, I know that I'm not happy doing what I'm currently doing in my job. What do I do now? So, So I want to talk briefly today about some of the common obstacles and fears of making a career change, especially when you're not exactly sure about what you want to do, and what are some steps that you can take to address those fears and overcome those obstacles. So the first one that's really common is exactly what I just mentioned. I don't know what I want to do. I know I'm unhappy where I'm at right now, but what I want to do next, it could be a bunch of things. It could be something that I've never even thought of. So, how do you transition into something if you don't know what it is? And I think a lot of people, when they're in this kind of situation, they they go through the database in their brain and think through what are some other types of jobs that I know about, and do I want to do that job? Do I want to become a veterinarian? No. Do I want to become an office manager? No. And they might have some idea of what they want to do more. Like, I want to interact more with people than I do with computers, or I want to be able to get outside instead of being in an office all day. But translating that into a job title gets confusing. And so, what I want to say about that is that actually starting with the types of things that you want to do is a great place to start. And because job titles don't always reveal what you'll be doing on a day to day basis. So saying, okay, I'll go into nursing, for example, because not in an office and I'm working with people. But number one, there's a lot of different kinds of nursing professions. And number two, what about the rest of the work? Is that stuff that you really want to do? So so I really encourage people to use this metaphor of building a mosaic of your future. And so this is why I call this process career design versus job searching, because you are creating something that works for you. The reason why I like the concept of a mosaic is because there are kinds of mosaics that are basically created from things that are around you. So, in case you don't know what a mosaic is, it is a piece of art that is generally made from tiles or objects, and then they're kind of glued together to make a beautiful picture. And so, what the symbol is, the metaphor is for your life, is that you start with who you are. You start with what you want more of or less of. And so those are your tiles. Those are the building blocks of your future. And once you have an idea of what you enjoy doing, what you want to do with your life, then you can start prioritizing and saying, hey, I want a little bit more of this. I want a little bit less of. And then from there, you can start moving those pieces around to create, to design your life. So, so those are the main steps. And so if you don't know what you want to do as far as a job title is concerned, that is not really an obstacle. I want you to start with what you do know. And this is one of the reasons why I created my career design studios, because it just walks you through this process. And so not only are we using the Mosaic Metaphor, quite literally, that you're building a virtual mosaic as you're going through this, it really helps to frame your mind of what is important here and what are the steps that I'm going to take. So you've got the raw materials, who you are, what's important to you, your personality, your preferences, your interests, your strengths and challenges, your values, the kind of life you want to live, what kind of ideal day do you want? These are all exploring your wants, needs, and goals. And then from there, you can start arranging and prioritizing the things that are important to you, and then let that feed you into potential jobs. And in fact, if you get through my career design priorities and you're like, okay, these are the things that are important to me, and there's a whole lot here, these are the kinds of work activities that I want to do, these are the kind of skills that I want to use, these are the abilities that I want to be really focused on, and the kind of work context that's important to me, as well as what's my work style. And as you go through all of those and say, these are the things that are my biggest priorities, and you don't know what kind of jobs that means, you can actually just print out this list and talk to people with a wide range of experience or in some industries that you're interested in and say, these are the things that I've said are most important to me. What kind of jobs enable me to do those things? And in fact, if you go to my exploration, this activity, once you prioritize things, is going to give you a list that the Bureau of Labor Statistics thinks is a match with what you've done. So I really want you to start with who you are and what's important. And then from there, you can start turning that into job titles, and then that's going to make the rest of the process that much easier. Okay, so that is challenge and obstacle number one. I don't know exactly what I want to do with myself. I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So the other fear and obstacle that comes up a lot is I'm scared of making a mistake. What if I move to another job and it's worse than the one that I already have? And so that fear of making a mistake often paralyzes us and we don't do anything. So in those cases, there's a couple of things that are useful in dealing with that. And one is to understand that feeling of fear is important in helping us to stay safe. It is hardwired into our brain, and we evolved in such a way that it's a very, very useful thing to have, fear of making a mistake, if that mistake might result in you being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. We don't have too many saber-toothed tigers running around, but our brain and our nervous system are still seeing mistakes as potentially life-ending disasters. And so to know that, number one, if you make a mistake, it is not a life-ending disaster. And number two, making mistakes is the most effective way of learning. So if we can start reframing mistakes, especially if it's not going to end in a life-ending disaster, as a learning opportunity, then that should take some of the fear away. And then also there are some activities that you can do to kind of work through the emotions. And in my career design studio, we have a section that is called my Art Critic. So that's that little critical voice that we have in our heads. And so my art critic basically gives you a bunch of activities and exercises to do in common situations. If you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling low and you want to boost your mood, if you're feeling regretful about what you've done in the past, if you are doubting your ability to do something, or if you just need to kind of refresh. So if we look at the activities to overcome doubt, we've got one that, and a lot of these are just kind of little meditations. And so this one helps you think through what is your goal to have a new job? What would the outcome of that goal be? And so that might be a happier life, a better mood, more time, more money, whatever that is. So just imagine and envision that. And then start thinking about, okay, so what is my resistance to this? So if it's my fear of making a mistake, then you write that down. And then you come up with a plan to deal with your resistance. And then you basically execute the plan. So if you're really feeling overwhelmed or stuck, then doing, kind of separating these things out. And so instead of this overwhelming sense of panic you feel, you actually start to examine them, and for each point that you're feeling some fear of resistance, then you can be like, okay, so what can I do about that? What's really going on? Thinking about the worst case scenario, and then on top of that, saying what's the likelihood of that happening? Because often we will, imagine that saber-toothed tiger jumping in and ripping our throat out. The chances of that happening, actually, that's kind of a 0% chance. But a lot of the other things that are worst case scenarios, our biggest fear, not very likely to happen. And so once we start containing that fear and turning it into words, turning that into images, turning that into percentages, then that changes its power over us, and we start to get some agency and some movement. And then the other thing too is, by going through a career design process, the purpose of starting with your raw materials and then your exploration and your research, that is to help minimize the chances that you are going to go to a new job and be just as miserable. So when you know what you want, when you know the jobs that best match what you want, when you know the organizations that are the best cultural fit for you, and you have talked to people who are working there, and you know what the reality is like, then you really minimize the chances that you're going to be unhappy. But if you haven't done that self-reflection, if you don't know what you want, you don't know what your preferences are, what your priorities are, and you just take whatever falls into your lap, there is a good chance that it's not going to fit you. So by putting the work in up front, then we can make this change and transition without making our lives worse than they are right now. And that really is the goal. Sometimes it takes multiple steps to get to where you really want to end up. But the important thing is to take those steps. And so by making it very concrete and tangible and small, then we can move forward. And so that goes to the third point of why people don't make a career change when they're unhappy. And that's, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do next. I don't know what to do after that. I don't know what to do after that. And so, working with a coach is one way that people overcome that. Let somebody else figure out what I need to do and tell me what to do, and then I'll do that, and then we'll go from there. And my career design studio is basically having a coach in your pocket to break down these steps in very bite-sized pieces. And even though when you do that, it looks like there's a lot of them, you are still making progress, and you know what to do once you've figured out, okay, this is the kind of job that I want to do. Then you start looking at, okay, what are the organizations that hire people like me? Okay, now that I know that which organizations I want to work for, then I want to talk to people at those organizations and make sure that that my research and the reality mesh. And then you talk to those people, and then you ask, are there any upcoming jobs that you think that I can apply for? And once you apply for jobs, then you can go back to that person and ask them to put in a good word for you. And that ends up being one of the most effective ways of getting an interview, is to have someone say, hey, I think you should talk to Rhonda, and I think she'd be great for this job. And they don't even have to say that. They can just say, I've met with her. I think she's worth bringing in for an interview. And then the rest is up to you. So if that's what is stopping you, know that there are ways to break these steps down into bite-sized pieces, and you don't have to figure it out. You just have to do it. So, and then the other thing that comes up is, so I want to do something completely different. How do I talk people into hiring me to do something that I haven't done before? And so really, that's a little bit of a longer conversation, but the thing to take away from that is that if you have gone through this career design process, if you know your personality, you know your preferences, your interests, your values, what you want out of life, your goals, and that matches the job that you have. If you do a gap analysis and realize, oh, okay, like I can do most of this job, but I don't have this one particular skill, then you can go and learn that skill. And so that you become you become qualified for the kind of work that you want to do. And you might volunteer to get some experience. Volunteer experience is professional experience, and you can use that. And so there's a lot of different ways. But the other thing to know is that if you are a good fit for the job, then, and you can talk about why. My detailed orientation, my innate, organizing abilities have contributed to me doing A, B, C, and D. My interpersonal skills, where you are able to identify what makes you a good fit for this job, and you show your dedication and commitment, then a good manager would rather hire someone with less experience and a lot of potential, and especially someone who would enjoy the work, especially if the job is a difficult one to fill, and someone who has shown their commitment, that person is going to be a better hire than someone who's got skills and experience, but absolutely no enthusiasm for the job. And that is a majority of the workforce. People who have a job to pay the bills, don't enjoy it, just want to get done at the end of the day, want to do as little as possible. That kind of person versus someone who is excited and I can't wait to do this and give me more. A smart manager, not all managers are smart, but a smart manager is going to hire that person. So it is not impossible. This is not mission impossible to make a career transition. And, a couple things that we haven't really touched on that might be important is, some jobs require specific education, a PhD or a master's and blah, blah, blah. And if you don't have those, and those are requirements, or certification or licensing, all of those kinds of things, yeah, you have to get those. But look for the jobs that basically either don't require that, or do what you have to do to get certified in that. And again, that demonstrates your commitment, that demonstrates your willingness to go above and beyond. But those are kind of few and far between. So do your homework, know who you are, know what you want, know what fits you, and then from there make a plan to get you what you want. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope that, going forward, to just know that there is a step that you can take now. There is a step that you can take today. Figure out what that step is and take that one, and let that one lead you to the next place. And if you get stuck, ask for help. That's what I'm here for. So it was great talking to you, and here is to effective career design.